Hello, everyone. We'll just wait a couple minutes while folks trickle in.
I think we should have had some jokes prepared.
No. Do you know any good VC jokes?
Oh, I might not do the controversial VC joke because I probably will. Hey,
Cheryl.
Hey, Cheryl.
Can you hear us? And is your computer working well?
Okay. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can. So we're just going to wait a minute until some folks trickle in. Do you know?
Nice to see your face, by the way. I haven't seen you in forever. You look great.
Thank you.
It's so good.
And we've never met, so hi.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. It's
Any non-controversial VC jokes that we can start the session off with?
Non-controversial, but those
that's why I didn't say any, because all of them I know are controversial.
Right? Like, oh my god, VC congratulating themselves. The Twitter account just followed me yesterday, and I was like, they're on to me. Oh no! Do I block them? I don't know. But yeah, so no, this is.
People ask me if that's me. Like if I'm the one running the account, and I'm like, no.
It's been long speculated. It's some random dude, but do I care? Not really. I'm like, to each their own. Twitter is just a weird place. I'm sure. Like, I don't know how or why people do what they do, but just kind of do your own thing. So
that's pretty cool. You know what I was just saying when I think we're going to start in a minute, but I was just saying I put out a tweet just now, and I have anxiety over the tweet because it's nothing controversial, but I don't ever put myself out there. And the fact that I just did, I'm like, I'm going to go back to my phone. It's all gone wrong.
Yeah, I hate that anxiety that comes with the tweet sometimes, and I'm like, but I don't care at this point. Like, just do you, right? Like, whatever works.
Yeah, I was saying, as you get more into this industry, you just realize there's going to be like so much stuff out there about you. You just have to go with the flow.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm very new to.
Yeah, should we get started? It seems like we're getting
Why do people keep floating up?
That's their commenting. So if you go from people to comments.
Oh, okay. Hello. Oh, so many people I know. Hello, y'all. Thanks so much for being here. Yes. Oh, thank you guys. Oh, this is going to be a good time. Okay, I'm excited.
Welcome all to this panel on the role of VC fellowships and internships play for underserved VCs. I am Elizabeth Galbet. I'm one of the managing partners and co-founders of SoGal Ventures. We're an early stage venture capital firm that invests in diverse founders, revolutionizing how the next generations live, work, and stay healthy. Over the past 5 years, I've invested in about 90 plus companies. And we're just about to go out and raise our second fund, which will be my third fund, which is very exciting. And then I'm also co-president of the SoGal Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that's the largest global community of diverse founders and funders. And we have chapters in over 50 cities across 6 continents. We're always looking for new chapter leads across the world. The continent we're missing is Antarctica. So if you know any founders or funders in Antarctica, please let us know. But also you can apply, get tons of resources. And we actually have, financial means to be able to support you in building a local ecosystem wherever you live. So with that, I want to introduce our 2 wonderful panelists. They want to give themselves a short introduction of who they are and maybe how did you first learn about VC? Like at what point in your life were you like, VC is a thing and it's something I'm interested in?
Yeah, I'll go first. So, hey everyone, I'm Sheryl Campos. I am the head of venture growth and partnerships at Republic. I actually met Elizabeth back when I was on the investment team. So I was like an associate or something. And so that was 3 years ago. Crazy how time flies. But, it's awesome now, specifically working with VCs, accelerators, ecosystem players, to make sure that we're getting amazing diverse deal flow. And at the same time, trying to make the ecosystem more diverse. So, native New Yorker, went to Harvard, majored in economics, went into banking, PE, and I actually found out about VC from a mentor of mine who was the previous head of venture growth and partnerships, Bianca Ban, who is now a principal at another VC firm, Heartland. So super exciting. And she just invited me to an event and I found out what Republic did and saw that it was an intersection between, fintech and social impact and, cutting edge new laws that had just changed. And I asked for a job on the spot. So I was like, I have no idea what this is. What is B2B? I don't care. I just know that this is doing something good for the world. Right. And I mean, I don't know what I was thinking, quite frankly. I took a massive pay cut from, the traditional finance dollars and all of that. And I was supporting my mom too. So I was out here like really putting myself out on a limb. But I just knew it was kind of what I was passionate about. I'm still gratefully, I'm very passionate about it still. And that helps drive what I do today. And so over time, I learned what B2B was. I learned what VC is. And we're at a very interesting kind of intersection between being a startup, but also being a VC. We're like a VC-enabled, tech-enabled VC in the sense. So, right. And we're just democratizing access to, investing and fundraising as a whole. So that's my story.
Can you quickly say like what Republic is and what it does?
Yes. Forget. I mean, although I will say more and more people know what it is, but back when I first, met you, nobody knew. And I think that was our biggest, hurdle was awareness, right? So for those of you who don't know, Republic spun out of AngelList back in 2016, and we're essentially Robinhood, but for private startups. Not sure if that comparison is good anymore, thanks to GameStop. Like we might not want to be associated, but, just saying that, it's something where accredited and non-accredited people can invest in startups with as little as $10, $50, $100. And I think it's a confluence of 4 different trends why we have just skyrocketed in terms of, we now have 1 million members. We've helped 250 companies raise over $200 million. And the reason why is because people are starting to realize they want to be owners, not consumers. A lot of founders want to harness their community and try to, tap into that and, help them become stakeholders. People want to diversify their portfolios, especially since the public markets are kind of crazy. And last but not least, alternative assets. People are all about the, NFTs and all that, but, private stakes in different startups is cool.
Yeah, and I can attest, I love investing on Republic, and 2 of my deals have already provided me a return. So it's amazing being able
to... Oh my God, Elizabeth, sorry. I paid Elizabeth to do that. No, I'm kidding.
Will our other esteemed panelist please introduce herself?
Esteemed, and I'm like, yes. So fun fact, Elizabeth's now going to have to send me some chocolate. I made my first investment in Republic 2 weeks ago. And exactly. And I was like, amazing. I can see it becoming addictive. So I have to unscribe to some of the stuff because I was like, otherwise I'll just be like, I want to invest in this and this and this.
You locked up your money for a while and you're like, wait, how did that happen?
Okay, Gumroad, you need to get to 1 billion now. This is where you need to be, right? So interesting you said the whole brand thing because I'll go into included, but just for everyone that's here, firstly, hi. It is 9 p.m. in London, which is why I look a bit strange. But I am Nikita. I am the co-founder and director of Included VC. And I can proudly say this. It still is the first of its kind fully funded venture capital fellowship. And I know fellowship means a lot of different things, but in this case, it's a fully funded 9 months, well now 9 months before it was 12, where you get to learn, get access and opportunity into venture capital. We don't provide internships or anything like that because other people do, and we tell everyone to go that way. But we're really hoping to take those that are diverse, and diverse means beyond gender. So it's not just race and gender, it's also neurodiversity, it's LGBTQ+, it's hidden disabilities that some of our fellows have. It's also socioeconomic background. So you might look at someone and be like, but he's a white guy. I get you, but they've come from a different hardship. Ex-inmates, refugees. And so the diversity gamut is super long and sometimes unseen, which I know people, but that's like a white person. And I'm just going to be honest and say that that's what they hear. But for us, it's like, how do we get these individuals who maybe wouldn't have had a chance or would have had a chance to get into venture? They then hopefully will get a job, or some of them, we will maybe talk about this, realize they don't want to do this because it's not sitting there in your vest chucking money at people and just throwing money, which I think people come to realize a little bit later that there's a lot of hard work. And some of them go on to do other things, and we hope that they'll invest in the future in better companies when they become decision makers, and hopefully they'll enable those that come after them to give them a leg up into the industry. So that's like the short intro, which I'm sure we'll go into.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an awesome mission, and I'm so glad you exist. We were talking before everyone arrived that one of our SoGal Uganda chapter leads is actually an upcoming VC Include Fellow, and how exciting that is to kind of see somebody go through their own career progression, which I know many of you on this call, right, are thinking about. Is VC right for you? What are the different roles in VC? What does, a day-to-day job in VC look like? And more importantly, like, how do you even get one of these jobs? Cheryl's super lucky. She just said, I want this job. And it happens.
You gotta take life by the horns, like, just go for it. When you like it, you see it, you go.
I made my own job because, I had gone to people and said, I'd like a job, and they'd say, don't hire women, or you didn't go to Harvard. So, we only hire people from Harvard or Stanford. And I said, well, that sucks. Like, I'm still of value, I got to go start my own thing. So to kind of some of the questions we were talking about, for you both, like, what kind of internship and fellowship opportunities exist in venture, and how would somebody who's listening to us today find those opportunities?
Yeah, I'll start on this one because I think I have just throughout my life have always benefited from programs that are community centric and focused on, exposing me to new opportunities and kind of ways of thinking just throughout my life. I did a program called Prep back in the day, which took 5th and 6th graders to prepare them for 14 months to go into private schools, right? Like, that's the reason why I was able to go to private school and therefore Harvard later on. But it was something where it always stuck to me that I always need to look out for these communities because they will help you and increase your network and help you figure out what things work and don't work, right? And what you can do. So in terms of VC, I realized very quickly, people did not respect Republic, and that's a whole different thing, right? Like, people were like, oh, you're not VC, you're Republic, or you're like blah, blah, blah. Is like a lot of things that I still have a blacklist. Like, I still have people who I'm just like, I'm not going to talk to you today. But that's okay. And then, however, I did want to find a way to, go over that taboo, or like make sure that people saw me not just with Public, but also doing other things, right? So I actually found a program called Alumni Venture Group, has a Venture Fellows program. And I think the powerful part about it is, and just for those of you who don't know, Alumni Venture Group actually essentially takes a model where, like, the Harvard, like, for example, the Yard Ventures is Harvard alumni supporting Harvard entrepreneurs. So basically doing that for all different colleges and universities across the nation. So like John Hopkins alumni supporting John Hopkins entrepreneurs, right? Like, it's this model all across, but it's only for accredited folks. But I still thought it was a better model than like what's right now happening, which is just more like siloed, network driven, and not really focused on giving back, right? I think there's that element to that. So I applied, got in, and what was really key about it was that it opened up kind of a network of all of these amazing, incredible people who wanted to break into VC, right? And I think another thing was that they gave me access to PitchBook, which I missed so much from back in my days. And I was like, oh my God, PitchBook, it's incredible. So it was a really good research thing. Plus, they also gave you an email address with the Yard Ventures thing, which allowed me to then cold email people and be like, hey, I'm actually like in venture and I do want to talk to you. So like that actually, it's one of those things where you sometimes have to like find your way around and make the most out of these opportunities. And so that's the one that actually you are a fellow for about a year. And they do have some programming to teach you around VC and kind of how it works, while at the same time I was at Republic. So like kind of juggled both things, but that really helped me increase my network. And when I created the venture partner program, which I'll explain later, so like what all that is, I was able to bring in about 10 people now from Alumni Venture Group, the Fellows Program, to become venture partners at Republic. And they have been some of the most prolific deal makers now, because we've all kind of grown together. So really thinking through when you think about these things, it's like, how do you make friends with your peers, because you're all going to rise up and, you know, one way or another, like be the deal makers in the future. So that's one that I'll plug in there, and I'll talk about the venture partners, fellows, associates.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's so important. The reason I'm here today is I ended up going to Stanford plus 500 startups investing course, which, right, is where I ended up meeting my co-founder, Pocket. Arlen from Backstage Capital was also in our cohort, a bunch of other new emerging fund managers.
Wait, that's incredible. I didn't know she was in that too. Yeah. Oh my God. Wow.
Lolita was in the cohort after us, because we actually did Lolita to go take the course, who some of you may have just seen, you know, in the last.
I'm in her fund now, like as an investment partner. So
and I think that, you know, that thing about creating a peer network, right? I was in DC, I was building a student fund at Johns Hopkins, and I went to this program out of Stanford, and I had never met other women VCs before. Like in DC and Baltimore, it's like all dudes. And just being in the same room with like 13 other women who, you know, were investors, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like in shock and awe, and this is just absolutely incredible. But we really, right, became friends. Some of us invested in each other's stuff as co-investors. Some of us were like LPs in each other's funds. And I think what you're saying there, Cheryl, about like figuring out how you can build some of these peer networks, even if it's not necessarily the full-time VC role at the beginning, but it could be, you know, an education course you do. Like we teach an angel investing and investing course through SoGal on our nonprofit side. Like building those networks are really important, because they may be able to tell you where the next VC internship or role is that you can find, especially if you're coming from, like I was coming from Baltimore, where there really wasn't a venture ecosystem at the time. And I definitely didn't know, you know, what the Silicon Valley venture ecosystem was like at all. So I'm really grateful for 500 startups kind of helping us all out there. Do you want to talk about your fellowship program that you've built?
Yeah, I'm going to tag team off both of you, because what you said, and I get extremely passionate about this. I probably will, you know, I say my fellows because it's just how I speak about them. But when you say peer group, if you met the 2021 fellows today, they have never met in real life. They have known each other for 4 months, and they are like this. When one of them applies to a job, they actually help each other for the same job. There's no competition. It's all rise. And it makes me so happy, because I think it's instilled in their brain or tattooed somewhere that you have to pay it to each other and then pay it forward. Because if you don't help each other, and I didn't mean help each other for the same job. I never said that. I actually said the opposite, but maybe that's what went through. And they all have job interviews, and then one will message me saying, hey, look, I got this, X fund, really big fund has reached out. Can I also tell them to interview the other fellows? And I'm like, maybe you should just do you. But the power is so, so brilliant. And also shout out, one of my included fellows also did Unlocked. And one of them's going on soon. So I feel like it's a small world. But I think what people underestimate is you can do some of these internships, or I think fellowships, but the thing that's going to make you thrive isn't the education. It is, because it's the foundational, but that's probably number two. The thing that's going to get you to that level in the future is your peers. And if you can build a tight relationship in a way that, like, one of them, I'm again very proud, in the last week, one has got a job at Hummingbird, the other one internship at Tomico, one in Indonesia, one in Africa. They're all spread out globally. Well, very different backgrounds, different opinions, but I know that they can reach out to any city in the world and they have someone there. And included, it's only 18 months in. So I can just imagine then 10 years. And okay, I haven't said this out loud, so I'm going to say by the time this comes out, I'll have to quickly tweet about it. We are going to launch something soon for those 5,000 people that didn't get on to included VC in the last 18 months. And it is going to be a couple of hundred, maybe 1,000 people, but how do you get them to become peers? I don't want it just to be that they come on a course, they learn, and then they kind of go away. So that wasn't the initial, I'll go back to the initial question, but I wanted to really tag team the peer support, because whoever's, for anyone that's listening, whenever you apply to something, really think about when you're picking whatever is out there, what connections am I going to make with my fellows, my peers? And if you're there, even if that base foundation isn't there, how can you make it happen? Right? Because I think that's like the most crucial thing. Going on to cool things out there, I'm going to plug a couple just because I think if you're in France, anyone's in Europe, there's an 8-week boot camp by Baby VC. It's 8 weeks and it's, I think, mainly French kind of focused. You've got Black VC in New York doing their 8 weeks. Then you have Diversity VC in the UK doing internships. So there's 2 years ago, there wasn't as much, but today in 2 years, it's just exploded. And I think you can be, there's a couple. So anyone wants a list, I'm going to actually, I think, you know what, after this chat, I'll probably put a list out on Friday on Included VC, and I'll put a massive list out of all the things that you can access. Okay, yeah, I've said it now, so I'll have to do. Yeah, I'll do it on Friday. So yeah, I'll do that. So I think that that kind of works. And then the other thing I wanted to say, because I saw someone's comments, I think it was from Ali, was that in terms of Included VC today, it was a blind process. So stages 1 and 2 were blind, and I didn't see who all 112 were till the third stage. And that's what makes the difference, because in our first year, 30% of those that applied identified as women, but actually on the cohort, it was 60% ended up being women. That's not like 25 and 27%. It's double. And so, yeah, so Ali, to your question, the blind process works super amazing. So I just answered like 2 questions in one, but.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of a different process for how we've hired all of our interns. So I actually don't put an application out there. My email is completely public, and every single intern we've hired has been from cold emails that they've sent me. And they've told me about themselves and their skill sets. Perhaps they've sent some deals or, an industry research report. But, on my LinkedIn, everyone has access to my email. And every single intern, which has been dozens now, have come from cold emails where they were really passionate about what we were doing. And, they wanted to get work experience in the industry, and they had certain, investment theses or lenses that they really liked. But we really wanted to make it, because we don't have time, right, to interview 500 potential interns at all. And we know an intern, this kind of goes to the next question, like, what is a really good intern? Like, what differentiates a good intern versus, just like an average intern who gets the job at the end of the day? And for us, that proactiveness and being able, like, I built my whole career on cold emails, right? So being able to cold email and research and then actually apply what you've researched to forming a connection and relationship with somebody you've never met in person before, that's really important to me. So that's how we've always hired our interns, and they've been from all over, all different types of experiences, all different types of diversity. That's just my personal preference. But I'd love to hear the two of your sort of, like, what makes a good intern that then transitions into a full-time hire?
Before Cheryl answers that, can we clap? Because I'll clap, because that, Ali, what you just said, whoever's tweeting, please tweet this. Like, that is amazing. You deserve so much credit for that, because people don't do that. And the fact that you do it without even, that's amazing. It's the other way. I have to say it out loud, because I think what you're doing is brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky, right? Like, when I was in grad school, a bunch of alumni accepted my cold emails, and that's how I ended up at like the 500 Startup Stanford program, because one of the alumni was helping run it. And I think, there's so much power in democratizing it by opening it up to, whoever has the initiative, right?
Everyone on this, all 70 people now is going to be like, hey, it's me. I love it.
You'd be surprised. So we go through the SoGal Foundation, and we've been hosting these for almost 3 years now, monthly break into VC webinars where either myself or my business partner Pocket has a webinar with one VC. We've had Cheryl on it before. And basically, it's like a mass coffee where anyone can ask any questions they want, and we give a lot of advice. It's completely free. It's on a Saturday, so it doesn't interfere with people's work schedules. And every time I give the same advice, like send some deals with a synopsis to show your critical thinking, send, a research report, especially if you're in school and you have time to work on a project like that. We have had thousands of people on these webinars. I have only been followed up with 3 times with either of those things. So whereas you may think like everyone cold emails and everyone takes initiatives, 99.9% of people do not.
Okay, granted. I'm in your boat. I cold email. So yeah, sorry. Everyone in the room, can we please showcase that, even if 10% of you do it, that's still.
I love it. I mean, I don't have to go first on this question, but I mean, I guess just to answer around interns. So yeah, I've had some great interns, and I've had some interns who are just like, what are you doing? So I'd say the good ones really are the ones who are take initiative, follow up. I don't have to like follow up with them or ask them where these things are. They're just kind of like proactively say things and add value and take on more things than possible. So I'm actually going to highlight Zara, who's right now leading our Venture Fellow and Associate program, which has 100 people in it. We had about 650 applications. She was able to utilize again the Venture Fellows from the prior cohort to like really help with interviews and all of that and make it standard and actually have a great rubric that was also very focused on diversity. 80% of folks who are in it are diverse, right? So she ran this whole thing by herself. We did it together for the pilot program back in Q4, but she was able to take it and scale it. And that's the type of initiative and stuff where like I know that like she's so thorough in a lot of things that she does that like I don't have to be micromanaging her. And to be honest, I don't have time to micromanage her. And so actually, because of her performance, she's actually getting a full-time offer from Republic and will be joining us after graduating. Woo! So I'm so excited. She is a rock star, and those are the types of people that we want in Republic. We're actually we currently have some roles available because we just raised 36 million, so that's exciting. Which means that we'll be expanding the team, and the first place that we look for are the venture partners and then the venture fellows and associates, right? So it's really become a talent pool that I think gives us a leg up in terms of hiring, and then also just bringing good people together, because when good people come together, good things happen. We're a firm believer of that. And I think that's something where I think interns, they see that there's mobility and there's like a way forward, and the fact that we're fully loyal to our folks who are part of our community. And so I think they also do a really a job of if they see a path, they will work towards it. So and then I'll stop there.
What have you seen out of your fellows that have been successful in sort of being good interns or perhaps securing full-time roles?
Yeah, I mean, well, so far, so we had 30 fellows last year out of 19 universities, and most of them were diverse too. So 2 of them were already gotten full-time offers. That was super exciting. That was based off of, I mentioned the chat that I put it in the VC Familia Twitter, because I also founded an organization for Latinx VCs. But then also I posted to them and some particular ones, like job postings that, maybe VCs don't want to be out in the public. So we sent them those, and 2 of them got full-time offers so far. Some of them already had offers for like, banking and all of that by the time they did the fellowship, but it still was a great way for them to know about what VC is and how, to go forward from there. So it's really exciting that we already have results. There was someone who mentioned the fact that there was that drop down of like Ivy League. That was actually Nafisa. So she's one of our venture fellows, and she was like, and that was clearly explaining like this is why we do what we do, is because we don't want to perpetuate these stereotypes of like you have to go to these universities to go into VC. And I think that is really important, that they see that Republic is not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, not only in the founders that we source, but also in the people that we want around us. And so I think, it's been great to see the results already from something from Q4, and people are already getting jobs, and we now have 100 people, right, that already, by the way, are sending us deals. They're being proactive. Shout out to a couple who are like Sue, who's on right now, so hi, and just being very supportive of Republic as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's it's so funny, because a lot of times by potential LPs, I get asked like, so where did like your founders go to school? And like for half of them, I have no idea. Like that's not the important thing when I'm looking at a startup deal. But so often it becomes in the industry this like, somebody has a certain school logo or a certain company logo, therefore that means they're capable. But really those logos mean nothing. Like having an internship or job somewhere or going to a certain school really, at least in my opinion, doesn't mean much. So I think that's just really interesting. And just from our own interns we've had, sort of what I've seen be really successful is, I always say like it's so important to kind of be a sponge and absorb everything around you. I think there is this trend in the startup and VC world of like you're always trying to do the next thing. Like the more prestigious firm, the more prestigious fellowship, the bigger firm, the more assets under management. And when you do that, you're not actually present, right? And when you think about just being present with anything in your life, being present is where you actually learn, right? And where you actually open yourself up to like learning about things you maybe don't know or you didn't even know you could be interested in. So for example, I do a lot of healthcare deals. I've had some interns that are just like, I'm not really interested in healthcare. And I'm like, you don't know, you're 18. Like, just give it a try, make this market map, talk to some of these founders. It might interest you, right? Like you don't know yet, right? And so I think,
by the way, I relate so heavily just because I'm now in healthcare too, because I'm femtech and silver tech. I didn't realize just how much of healthcare is really involved in that. But if you have a passion for it and it affects your life, like you're going to,
it impacts all of your lives. And it's just really interesting, right? To like learn about, like I sort of say like, all industries are interesting to learn about, even if it's not, the industry of your dreams. So some of our like bad interns have not been open-minded in that sort of sense. And I think, right, like you should just be soaking up everything from everyone you're surrounded by in these opportunities. And not doing so is actually a disservice to yourself, because you may learn something that you realize you're really passionate about, right? Just like taking that class in college because it's like required. And then you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be my major. I love this. Like there's moments that are like those aha moments, especially with so many new technologies emerging, that people may find their passions in a place they had no idea where it was before. And I think there's also this trend of like, I think Twitter is this amazing place. You can connect and talk to people that you may not get the chance to in real life, but some people focus on that so much that they spend all their time doing that. And they don't, again, spend their time being present in the opportunities that they currently have, that they just like, right, also miss kind of the boat on like all the learning opportunities are there. So when you do get, either an internship or your first full-time role in venture, like really just be present in the moment, not thinking about what your next step is, but actually seeing where this step can actually take you. I think that's really important.
I love that, because I feel like we're coming from the same boat, which is like so nice, because I'm the sole, for including VC, I'm like the CEO, but the admin person, but also the marketing and the Twitter and the curriculum and the host and the compare. So it's like it's a one person show. And I think sometimes I forget that there are other people out there that feel like what you're saying. And two things from us. So for included, the fellows that, I saw 3 of them, so hi. The fellows that get the jobs, there's only 3 words I say, it's go above and beyond. To the point when they look at you, and so I'll give you an example. So for everyone's like, okay, what does that mean? But one of our fellows, someone, Hummingbird, put out a tweet, and it was like 380 likes. I'm sure, at least, let's say 10% of that applied. And my fellow, because we had gone through so many, sent like a full-on deep dive about EdTech, and it's on Medium. You should read it. It's like actually a brilliant read. And that was the interview, right? Because it was the above and beyond. It wasn't the CV and it wasn't all of that. It was just, what can I do to get this and add value? And everything I say to them and beyond is, yes, you want to learn and you want to soak up, but where will you also on the side give? So they're kind of like, this person's is indispensable, right? So that's kind of one part. The second part being that you've really got to help each other. And I don't mean just fellows or interns, but like if you meet Cheryl or you meet Elizabeth, how can I help you? Even if they're not managing partners and they're not associates, maybe it's someone that's a peer, because you don't know when someone's going to recommend you. So what we've seen is that if a fellow goes to interview somewhere, let's say they don't get the job, that means the firm didn't want to hire them. But it's happened 3 times now that the firm has said, we can't hire you because of X, or there's a different fit, or we found someone else. But the firm has then recommended them to another firm. And you're like, that's cool. Like they didn't, how often does that happen in tech where you don't get hired, but they're like, hey, this person is super cool. It's just not for us. And then the third thing, and I'm so glad you brought it up because it just makes me so happy, was how do you know what industry you're not into if you've never been into that industry? So for our fellows, they have to source deals. They're not scouts necessarily, but they have to source deals to realize if it's for them and if that's something that they can do. And then they have a simulation investment committee. And I remember that I track it. And the first one, the guys were like, we don't want to do this fashion deal. I'm like, it's sustainable fashion. Maybe you can look at it as climate tech or, some other recycling way. And then weirdly, the women had written in their feedback, they didn't like the drone startup. And it was so stereotypically like how your bias would see it. And so I actually really encourage the fellows, like when you have these deals come in, they have to look at all of them before they can go to their investment simulation committee. Look at the things that you think are boring. Really dig into it, right? You'll learn something new and that's cool anyway. But you just never know. You might sit there being like, you might be a guy being like, I love femtech. And that could happen, right? And, yes, there's more, yes, I'd love to see more women in femtech, but wouldn't it be great if a guy wrote a 10,000 word deep dive on femtech, right? Talking about all of these people. So I think
actually, a lot of tech founders are men, which is very shame, but then they're the ones who get the money. And it's like versus women.
Yeah. But weirdly, Cheryl, is all the people I see that are like associates, analysts, or that are principals that are looking at femtech are female. So it's ironic that there's like a weird, so I think the thing I really, if anyone's here, is like, look at industries that you enjoy and that should always be a part of you, but also look at just stuff that's super out there that you're going to look back and be like, that's cool. Like silver tech, I still think is a missing, especially in Europe. I think there's people just haven't leaped. Cheryl's like, yes, they haven't leaped onto it. Yeah, I see the eyes. So I honestly think sit there and, yep, Anya's pulling out the fact, like circular fashion. Yes, Anya, that right there. So we
had like this great intern who I kind of went down this rabbit hole where I was like, China is now barring all of our recycled plastics. What is going to happen with all the plastics in the world? I want you to spend like 4 weeks getting to know everything about plastic and what alternatives to this plastic recycling problem, because in the US, they actually haven't built the infrastructure to recycle plastic because for decades, we were sending our plastic to China for China to recycle the plastic. And there's a lot to do with sort of gas and oil prices and new plastic production versus recycled plastic production. But, she came in this, she's a technologist. She's like computer coding, enterprise software is kind of her thing. And I'm like, for the next 4 weeks, you are going to learn everything about plastic, go. And she did this incredible presentation where, as a VC, I learned so much about plastic that I just had no idea what was going on. And she became super passionate after she read, in the US, only 9% of plastic we even put in recycling bins actually ever gets recycled. So 91%, even when we put it in recycling bins, does not get recycled. That's very problematic, right? What are technologies and startups that can do something about it, right? And that's a really interesting investment thesis. And especially after she had that experience, she can then go back into interviews when she's interviewing at other firms and say, like, look at this report I did, look at this research I did, look how analytical I am, look how I have my own independent thoughts, and I'm able to provide, this level of critique on an industry, and I'm able to find startups in this industry, right? She's done the job of being a VC, and she can demonstrate that to anyone now. So I'd love to talk about, like, what are some ways, even if people don't get into one of these fellowships and they're just reading about it online, listening to podcasts, reading TechCrunch, what are some ways that, like, you can kind of play being a VC before you're actually a VC?
I feel like you're setting me up for this. Well, there's something called Republic. Yeah. So, well, one, by the way, I wholeheartedly agree with a lot of what you're saying, and especially with, for our venture fellows and associates, by the end of the curriculum, they need to have an investment thesis that they have to put on Medium or a presentation so that they have something to show. And then plus they also get to hear some of our due diligence conversations. So like a library, just with different types of conversations we've had with different types of companies. So like they actually get to understand a little bit more. So like what questions you should be asking during due diligence and all of those type of things. So that's actually really helpful. So we, and the fellows and associates too, they also get money to deploy into Republic, which I think is going to be a really good exercise for them to just figure out, okay, if you have this much money, how much, like, what do you want to invest in? Is it going to be in your investment thesis? Is it going to be something else? And then how do you actually analyze? So Republic, for those of you who don't know, just joined, right? It's where startups, it's a platform where startups can raise up to $5 million and for anyone to invest in startups, which is pretty dope. You can also invest in real estate, crypto, Main Street, like a lot of different things too. Video game financing, like we have expanded. But I think what's really cool is that you can go into any page, and the page is basically like a pitch deck just laid out in a scrollable fashion. And what's really cool is that you can also ask questions to the founders. So at the bottom, you can, like, based off of what you've read, ask them questions, and they'll get back to you. And so that's really cool because then you get to learn how they're thinking. And then at the end of the day, you can also see who has invested and why. And I think that really helps because you get to learn with time and reps. A lot of angel investors generally say like, oh, like I deployed like 25K as my first check, and, that got lost, and, that never went through. And so the general sense is like
$1,000 checks. I literally would tutor ACTs.
Yeah.
For like $300 an hour in New York City. And then angel investing with like $1,000 checks.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Exactly. You got to hustle. And I think that's kind of like, it's hard for those minimums when they're so high sometimes. And so, really Republic allows you to get more reps and with a smaller amount that you invest. And so that's something I think is really important. And just FYI, I think I did put in the chat that there's a startup investing masterclass that we're putting on 5 weeks with Randy Zuckerberg and Mercedes and all these people from Insight, Lightspeed, and really great folks as a whole, to make sure that people are educated as to how they can not just invest like a VC, but think like a VC and learn from the best. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I have some ideas, even if you don't have money or you're not accepted into fellowships. So I remember really early on, and probably a lot of people on this call have felt this way, of like always being the early adopter of like new things, even like growing up as a kid. And a lot of companies that I was an early adopter of are, like the big multi-billion-dollar companies today, or the companies that are IPOing. And I really wish I had just even like written somewhere, even if it was handwritten, if it was a blog post, if it was a tweet, like, hey, I'm one of the first 100 customers of BarkBox. This is so cool. It's going to explode in 10 years. That company just went public via SPAC for, over $1 billion. But, at age, 19 or something, I thought it was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I was like, this is going to be successful. So I think even as you're seeing things in the market that interest you, what's for me, after like we've had over 100 students go through the student fund that I started, you can't teach passion about technology. that has to exist, right? You have to be intellectually curious and you have to be interested in this stuff. Most of the other skills in venture are 100% teachable and you can learn within months of time. Like anyone who thinks you need like a crazy finance background or a crazy tech background, it's just not true. You can do about 90% of the stuff a venture capitalist would do, like after 3 to 6 months of learning. It's more actually, are you passionate? Are you learning all the time? Are you reading? Like I probably read a couple hours a day. And that's really, really important to kind of just stay on top of what's going on, to see deals that I like. So I think even if you don't have a VC role yet, like you can do these things of reading, of identifying companies. I've seen a lot of people be very successful in starting either like interview series, podcasts, where they basically reach out to the people they admire, get to know them, and through that, leverage that into some sort of venture role later on. Or one of my favorites is this other VC, Claire, that we actually started the Breaking Into VC webinars with, is when she was in business school, she picked 2 micro kind of niche industries at the time. One was last mile delivery. Now we know, right? Last mile delivery is huge. But at the time, like all these things like DoorDash and everything were like startups, right? Like real startups, like right at the real beginning. And in business school, she reached out to all the founders and she said, hey, I'm in business school. I want to do this sub-industry report. I'll give you all as founders and CEOs the results after I interview a bunch of those. And then she basically cold outreach to VCs in the consumer space, which is where she wanted to work. And she said, hey, I did this, 40-page deep dive into this thing called last mile delivery. I think if you're a consumer VC, you're going to want to read it and sort of know what's going on in the last mile delivery space. And I'm happy to tell you the few companies that I think are going to be the big winners. And so she was able to get all these coffee meetings just because she had put in the time and energy, right, of creating this report, talking to the founders, and she was providing these VCs with something super valuable, because especially if you're a smaller fund, you don't have time all the time to go write a 40-page research report on a new trend, but having someone show up and give it to you and like talk you through it and tell you, hey, these are the 3 companies you should really look at because I think they're going to be something special. Oh, and by the way, I'll connect you to the CEOs. Like that's basically right. Somebody who may not be a VC, but they are already doing the job of being a VC, and that costs nothing. It just costs your time and your ambition and your intellectual curiosity. And again, right, I've said this on so many monthly calls to thousands of people, only 3 people have ever done it. Like this is the way you differentiate yourself if you want a VC job.
I want to tag on to one bit that you said, which is super important. Everyone, and I say everyone, most people think that VCs know everything and VCs are like here and everyone else. And I just want to talk, like, if you knew how busy, so I always say, I disclaim, I'm not VC. And right now I have no intention of, I would like to get people into VC and I would like to be that person. But I think on a general level, everyone assumes that, oh, they know everything. And actually they don't. Like Elizabeth said, if you sent her or Cheryl, like even think about, okay, let's take AI away for a second and fintech and any of that. Think about beauty, think about construction tech, manufacturing, all these silver tech, the things people aren't always writing about, right? You can genuinely do a series like once a month. It doesn't have to be crazy pressure. It can be a really good deep dive, 3 times, four parts. And when someone Googles construction tech or startups in construction tech or hot topics, you come up and they will reach out to you. And I think like one of our, so we started publishing included VC Insights, and they come out every 4 times a week. So one of our fellows mandatory have to write 100 pieces between them of industry insights. We've had browser tech come out again, like I didn't know that much about browser tech, and they're all kind of 10 minutes and they're in depth. But I want people to realize, like, okay, I'm going to say this. One of our fellows was like, hey, my financial modeling isn't all that. I said, hey, why don't you do a layman's guide to financial modeling? And when they Google you, they will find you and be like, she knows how to do this. So I think there's such a, there's a fear of doing it. I had that fear and I let go of it today. It took me this long to let go of it on Twitter, and I just did it before this call. So when I go back, I'm going to see what I've done. But I said I was going to learn in public. And I'm one of the most low-key people on Twitter you'll meet. But if, and I say this to everyone, that just take that one step. That's all you need to do. Do that one report and you will become addicted, right? Find that one deal. And some founders will send you a rejection. Some won't respond. A lot of people won't respond. But all you need is someone to respond. If you write this, send it to 15 VCs, even if 14 of them don't, by the way, that's not going to happen. At least half of them will respond. But if 14 of them don't, one will. And then you post it again after a few months and a few more will respond. So I think you can.
VCs love the path of least resistance.
Yes, make it.
A firm with only a few people, for me to run a full interview process where it's open and I'm going to get 2,000 applications, in addition to, investing in a new company a month, doing multiple follow-on rounds of my existing companies, like I already don't sleep. I would get no sleep at all. So the way that I look at candidates is like, oh, you sent me this. It was good. You seem nice. Hired. Right? like it really
is right. Crazy too. Yeah. Hiring takes so long. People don't realize this, which is why I now have a deep appreciation for our hiring companies, because now I'm like, wow, like the amount of time it takes to correspondence, filtering, interviews, all of that. You just don't have time for that.
I think I did 112 for the final interviews. Never do that again. Like I will never do that again. But I nearly passed out by the end.
Because the reality is there's more qualified people than there are positions in VC.
Oh, for sure.
So the thing that sets you apart, right, is being proactive and kind of doing those things that set you apart. And at least in my opinion, if you do that, you're already on such a different level that like I can teach you the rest. Mm-hmm. Right? Like whether it's financial modeling or, about an industry, that's very teachable. It's like the proactiveness, the interest in research, the interest in being up to date on technology. That's not so teachable.
One piece of just a quick tidbit for anyone that's here, that if you're sending an email, I would highly recommend you try it. Do an A/B test, see what works for you. But what I would try even is Notion. So play around with Notion. For some of you, that most of you use it, I'm assuming, but I assume that because I use it. So let's not go with that assumption. Play around with Notion, write a VC an email and say, this is who I am, a little bit about you. This is the research I've done. Here's the link. And these are the highlights from that link. And here are a few startups I found. 100% someone is going to click on that link. Okay, 99.7%, but still, it's going to happen. Instead of sending an email with a zillion links and attachments, and, it's a little bit confusing, just send a really nice link. And again, like Elizabeth said, it's the path of least resistance. It's one click that they have to do and scroll.
Right? Yeah. And I think the other thing that I've really learned in this industry over time is like, it may not be the first communication. And even though if you don't get a response, people are reading it. So, for example, when I was in business school, I would listen to audiobooks because I would drive in between DC and Baltimore every day, which was about 4 hours in the car. And there was this entrepreneur in one of the audiobooks, Marla Beck. She's the founder of Blue Mercury, the makeup store. And I just resonated so much with her story. She started her first stores in Georgetown. I was living in Georgetown at the time. She was a consultant. I had been a consultant. And, I had created this list of like, who are the dream people in the startup entrepreneurial ecosystem that I'd like to get to know one day. And I just started cold emailing them. And for some reason, even though I had people that knew her, or, I had people that had been in the same HBS class as her, I could never, ever, ever get connected. And for years, this went on. And then I ended up being on CNBC on Squawk Box one day, and I guess she was watching TV, and she reached out via Twitter and said, I just saw you on, CNBC, I'd love to connect. And I said, you have no idea how many emails I've written to different emails of yours. I have been trying to, connect with you forever. Like, I'm there. Tell me a time. And, I'm there. And she's like, oh no, I've been following you. I know who you are. Right. And so even if you don't think people are responding, they're still watching and they're still evaluating and they're still getting to know you. over time, and you'd be quite surprised like how good of memory different people have. And venture in the startup ecosystem is quite a small ecosystem, and people are always evolving from different roles, different companies, different firms, going in between startups, in between VC firms. And so somebody you may interact with on the startup side may become a VC in 2 years, and they may have a job to offer in VC in 2 years. And you never know if those interactions you've had previously are going to be meaningful for you to be the person that gets that job. So I always say, just like, even if people aren't responding, still you got to put yourself out there and sort of really have an idea of where you want to sort of head and who are the people you want to connect with. Because that can be, and now Marla is actually an investor in our fund. We've done deals together, all these great things.
Oh my God, this whole story is just like, wow, a dream.
I have a whole list of those people, of about 50 people. I would say about half of them I've now done business with. And these are people that, you know, growing up, I was like, these are my role models. Like, I became an entrepreneur because of these people. And now, like, I'm texting them and calling them anytime I want. It's like, this is
the come up is real. Like, things come
real.
Can I say, even the VC, and I've not really said this out in public, so I'm going to say it with him. So it's not humble brag, but it's true. It's just for anyone that's listening. If this is if what Elizabeth said, and if this inspires you together, then please do the cold email. I had 3 people I wanted to interview or meet in life, and I don't fan mail, right? So I sent someone an email, and this person was never going to respond. They're a billionaire. Like, they're one of the best profiled billionaires in India. They're the only female. So very, very busy, you know, in there, a bit older, and like they're going to have 6 PAs, obviously. I send an email at 5:31, and at 5:32 I get a ping, which means obviously it's undelivered, and there's no point. And why would she read such a long email anyway? And I see her in a magazine, and I kind of like send her that email then. She has responded a thorough response back in 120 seconds. And it's her. It's not her PA. It's actually her. And we have dinner together. I fly to India, and we have dinner together. And I kid you not, if that's going to happen, then a VC is definitely going to respond to your email. I think it's successful. So please I'm not saying this for any other reason, except my mom and my aunt know the story. But just for context, I think it's...
Yeah, we're all human. Like, my inbox is packed, so oftentimes you have to try me a few times, but be persistent.
Yes, following up is major key.
I miss a lot of emails.
Me too. It's sad.
I'm like terrible at
I literally tweeted about this yesterday. I got the vaccine shot, and I was like chilling with my mocha crumble cappuccino, like walking over a bridge over a bed.
I did not open my eyes for like 3 days,
pretending like my inbox wasn't overflowing. Like, it was just like I'm out here, like, but we do see them eventually, and we do try to reply.
Yeah, and we do put, you know, names in our heads to what people are saying, and we remember that over time. And then when you come up to one of us at an event, we probably do remember you, even though, you know, we have thousands of people emailing us. So we do have to wrap it up quite soon. Could we do a rapid fire of sort of like, what are some closing words that inspire and are your, you know, biggest piece of advice for people that want to get into venture capital?
Shoot your shot, clearly. Shoot your shot. Follow up, for sure. Follow up multiple times, too. I think people get the jobs when they are memorable and they tap into their superpower, really understand what your superpower is. For me, and people have just told me, I guess I'm a super connector, whatever that is. We're more just like, I feel like my superpower is that I'm just like who I am in any scenario. Like, I'm just authentic. Like, I
always have such positive interactions with you. I'm like, if I see Cheryl in real life, she's going to give me a hug pre-pandemic. She's going to like smile. She's going to be excited to see me. And like I have a little bit of social anxiety. I'm an introvert. Like, at any event, you know, I'm at that Cheryl ends up at, like, this is going to be a friendly face where I can just be like, oh my gosh, there's a person I know and like.
Yeah,
I always remember Cheryl because I'm like, I can count on her to like help soothe my anxiety as an introvert. And that's You're really memorable.
And as an extrovert, I will I will pull you and hug you, and yeah.
I'm an introvert too, so I don't know if you have 6 or 10 seconds out. I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
In real life, I feel like, okay, I'm going to get the hug too, so it's going to happen. But short on time, I would say definitely shoot your shot. I think it's my new thing. I thought it was a basketball term before, but I clearly know better now. And 2 is just 2 words, consistent. 3 words, consistency, a huge amount of persistence. And you know what? It's what Cheryl said. It's create your magic. Because I know it sounds cheesy and unicorny, well, pun intended, but honestly, you are you, and no one is you. And just find your niche. Yes, you're an introvert. Yes, you're whoever. Just be you. And I'm
100%. I'm going to put some of our resources up here.
Oh yeah, if you want to connect,
or if anyone wants to start like a SoGal chapter, definitely apply. I teach a 10-module course on kind of how to invest in VC or as an angel investor. So feel free to be part of that. Would love to have you there. And both of our esteemed panelists have great resources and programs also. So definitely check them out. Check out 500 Startups program. Definitely got to give them a shout out.
Mm-hmm.
We're where I met my co-founder. So that was really important on my own journey. But thank you everyone for joining us today. And, just do it. You all should be in VC. We need more great voices at the table. So don't be discouraged. And, it's a journey.
Yeah.
And